Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing Match of the Century from Capstone Games. Match of the Century is a two-player tug-of-war game designed by Paolo Mori that's going to simulate the iconic battle between Spassky and Fischer during the Cold War as they vied both for their countries and for chess. In fact, there's a whole pamphlet in this game about the history of that, but we're going to focus on the board game here. Because the board game here is not chess, which, I mean, you might see people who see the box, see everything, and decide it's chess. This is not a chess game. This is the board game chess simulated as a different board game in which players are trying to get to 6 points before their opponent. Each side over here is trying to get to 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Every time you win a match, you get a point, and every time you draw, you both get a point, and if there's a tie, if they simultaneously get to 6 at the same time, Spassky wins as the reigning champion. The way the game operates is you're going to have 4 lanes of battle, and you're going to have a hand of cards. You're going to look at the beginning of each match, you're going to look to see how many pawns you can take to your personal pool, which starts off as 2. Over here, Fischer has 7 cards, and Spassky has 6. I should be turning this face down. I don't know why I have you seeing these over here. There's going to be a blind hand draw over here. You're going to have your own decks of cards. I'm going to draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 over here, and then we're going to go ahead and have these cards as my hand of cards. Now, the cards have a few things going on. There's going to be the strength of the card, and that determines also which side can play. Right now, blue over here, Fischer is currently white, which means they can play this card because it's a white card. But this card over here is a black card, which means they'd have to play it to this side for its weaker effect. Meaning a card can always be played, but whether it's played for its stronger effect or its weaker effect, that depends on whether you're currently playing as white or black, and you have to balance that as you play. Meanwhile, Spassky over there is going to go ahead and start us off. In fact, actually, right, technically over here we have Spassky starts as white. We have Spassky play a card. We're going to have to play them to this lane over here. This would be a terrible play right now because they're playing a white pawn. That's also because I'm playing their hand a little bit blind as we go through them. And they're going to go ahead and do the effect. Well, before they do the effect, they're going to play the card. They have their 2 pawns. They have a hand size of 6. And I'm going to go ahead and counter that, and I'll try to win that with a 2, which should be simple enough because, well, again, this is a random play, so it's not the best way to showcase that. But over here, I'm going to go ahead and play this card. Now, we have to play to the lane that he played in, and because I have a 2, I'm going to go ahead and be able to win this battle, which means I'm going to move this up 2 towards my side. You're moving it 1, 2, 3, or 4 towards your side, and that's going to determine who wins each set of cards. Meanwhile, over here, Spassky is going to go ahead and do its effect, which for the pawn is either drawing a card or getting another pawn. So they're going to go ahead and take another pawn. We haven't really talked about what those do for you, at least not yet. Because I played the higher strength, I now go ahead and play the next card. Basically, white starts each match, but then whoever played the highest lane, whoever won the lane in terms of the strength of the lane, is going to play the next card. And remember, whoever wins the lane, whoever gets the movement in the lane, the other person gets their ability. So, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at my hand of cards, and I kind of want to lock it in nice and fast over here, because if I can go ahead and do this, I'm going to play this down over here, and I'm going to go ahead and play a 5 down over here. I can't do that. I'm lying, because I am not that color. In fact, looking at my hand right now, I'm realizing my hand is primed for a white hand right now, which is not the best. That's a terrible selection of cards. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try to lose the 1 and try to set myself up for a better card. So I'm going to play this down over here, which means I'm playing a 1, expecting to lose that. Spassky, let's go ahead and look at their hand and try to play intelligently over here. They're playing as white, so all they need to do is play any one of these cards. They're going to go ahead and play a 3 over here in order to win that battle. They actually don't mind losing that battle, but they're going to play the 3 in order to win that battle, which means they're going to move this back 1 towards them. Then, on my end, I'm going to go ahead and draw a card because I have the effect. I can draw a card or get a pawn because I didn't win the lane. So I'm going to go ahead and play this over here, and I got this card, which again is not great. Now, the upside is Spassky does have to play next on the lane, so they're going to go ahead and play for the 3. Let's see what they do over here. Let's see what they have, what their options are. They're going to go ahead and play, I guess they want to play the 3. They're white, so they're going to play the 3, and they're worried that the 3 might not be enough, so they're going to augment it with 2 pawns, which bumps their value to a 5. In general, when playing cards, you can augment it with pawns, which for each pawn you add, you can only add 2, you can bump the value of the card. The good news for them is they put me in a tough position because the highest number I have the highest black number I have would be a 1, so that's not going to help me much, which means I could try to resign the game. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and do this one over here. I'm going to resign the game. So I'm going to play this card over here, which is going to cause me to resign the game. Not the full entire game, but this individual match. But I will choose to gain 2 pawns as a result, because I get the effect of that. So resign the game and gain 1 for each unresolved exchange, or gain plus 2 pawns. So I apologize. It's or gain plus 2 pawns. So I did not resign the game, but that means he has to play again. He's going to go ahead and play this as a 1 over there, which means because of that, he's going to choose this over here, went up 1, 2, 3. So he does have to augment. He's going to actually augment that with a 1 over there, which actually means I might actually, because he had no other better cards over there, I might be set up for the win over here. I'm going to play this over here. I'm going to augment it with 2 of my pawns, putting me at 3 over there. Because I won this match, I'm going to go down 1 mental fatigue, but I'm going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, and I've gotten 1 step towards victory. That is a full match of the game. This is where you're going to go ahead and take all your cards, you're going to put them into your discard pile. Both sides are going to do that, but then you're going to go ahead and draw more cards. So you're going to take a look over here. So you're going to draw more cards from your deck, and you first choose what to discard. So right now I'm going to take a look. I'm going to be white next turn, which means I don't want to discard any of these because they're all decent for white over here. So I'm going to draw up to my hand size, which is currently 5. Because I started at 7, but when you play here, you go down 1 mental fatigue. So unfortunately, I'm only going to be getting 5 cards this round, which is not the best, especially because I just drew a black over there and another black. So I'm in a bit of a tough spot. I have to hope I can win this round. And they're going to go ahead and draw their hands back up to 6 for the match. And they have a bunch of, they're playing as black this time, and they have all the white cards, which it's not the best for them, unfortunately. But that's basically how you play through this game. In an individual match, you're going to be playing to each lane. You could augment your play with pawns. Whoever won the last plane, or starting with white, and then after that, whoever won the last lane is going to go ahead and play first to a lane, augmenting with pawns. The other side has a chance to respond. Depending on how the overall strength goes, you're going to affect the mark over here. There are a bunch of small rules. We're not getting into every little detail, but this track over here is going to check your hand size and how many pawns you get at the start of each battle, and how many additional increments you get on this track. Meaning, if I have this pawn over here, I start off with this 2 on my side. Worse than that, if my opponent is down 1 over here, you look at the difference. So they have a -1, I have a +2, I start at +3 on my side, which really sets me up for success. There's a lot of things you can do throughout the use of the cards that are going to augment this up or down as you go, and whenever you shuffle and redraw, whenever you have to shuffle your deck, you're going to lower your mental fatigue by 1. The length of time is taking its toll on you as you play. And that's basically how you play through Match of the Century. You're playing cards either for the strength or for the effect, trying to min-max, what actually is going to get you the win, what's going to happen if somebody beats you, are you comfortable with the loss effect, are you happy with it, trying to go through all those balances as you play through this game. And with that, let's go ahead and move to the review, starting off with ease of play. The game's overall pretty easy to dive into. I thought it was very straightforward, very clear as far as the rules go. There's a few interesting concepts going on here, but I thought it was fairly straightforward as far as the rules. Game length, the box is 30 to 45 minutes. I have found it's definitely in that 45 or sometimes even more length. This is a game that seems like it would be a shorter game, and maybe for some people it is. Because of the back and forth of getting to 6 lanes over here, if any individual match, because if you think about it this way, if an individual match, let's say, across those potential 6 points, if you have someone getting to 6, because you have a minimum of 6 matches, let's say the other person gets an average of 4, that means you're going to have 10 matches. If you're playing 5 minutes per individual match, that's a 50-minute game right there. So unless you're having really fast matches, which you can have, especially with resigning, unless you have really fast matches, I have found this game is in that slightly longer length. I have not played this game at 30 minutes, and I do not anticipate it playing at 30 minutes. I think there's a little bit more. I think that 45 minutes is a comfortable range. I'd say 45 to 60 is what you're usually looking at, and 30 is a very bad mismatch between 2 players, in my opinion. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking about this game, I love the push and pull of this game. This is a tug-of-war game. There's a lot of tug-of-war games out there that effectively have 2 players trying to push or pull different things towards them just by utilizing and being slightly more efficient with how their cards play, how they anticipate their opponent's actions. This has that tug-of-war feel, and it's really well done as far as how it operates. You have to be mindful of knowing when to win and lose. You can't win everything in the game. As you win, you're slowly going to move more and more down this track. Even just the nature of winning this means you are slowly going down, and if you're drawing 5 cards with a -1 modifier, while they're adding 3 pawns each round and adding, there's going to be a catch-up effect to the game, so you have to know when to push it a little harder, and you also have to know when to retreat and move on. You have to understand how to min-max, when you're going to win, push your opponent into fighting as hard as they possibly can, and using up as much as they possibly can to still lose. And when you think you're going to lose, try to give up as little as possible along the way. Try to set yourself up for success again and again and again. This is a game that's all about knowing how to win, when to lose. You will have to lose in order to win the overall game, and so you have to pick your battles. This is all about picking your battles, and the game gives you all the tools you need to do that between the strength of the card and the action of the card, but you only get one, not the other. There's a delicate balance as far as this game goes, as far as setting yourself up for success. The action versus the number is a big thing in this game. Very often you have games that have like action points or events. They always have these trade-offs, but here, when you win, you don't get the action. When you get the action, you don't win. And so there's a balance there, and you have to know how to push it. You have to know how to take advantage of your opponent's weaknesses in the game. And there's so many small decisions as far as how to set up that game state. How to be mindful of these tracks as far as, your mental stamina, strength, whatever it is as you go through through it, how to ensure that you're giving up a little bit more over here, when to add pawns as the aggressor, knowing your opponent can respond, when to save your pawns to be able to add them as defender when you have a bit more control because you're operating with full information. There's so many small things going on in this game, but they operate incredibly well. Even just knowing which cards are going to be giving you which effects on which round. You might have a great card that you love, but if it only happens when you're playing as black, you have to be aware of the fact that it only happens when you're playing as black, and you have to know that for your own deck as well as for your opponent's deck, which is actually a good tangent directly into the things I don't like about this game, which is a few things I don't like, not a lot, but the first I'll say is that game length. The game does run a little longer than what you would think or expect. I always start this game off thinking we'll be done in half an hour, and then every time it crosses 45 minutes, every time I play. So I do have that optimism every single time, but it does not work out that way. But I will say that this game does have that aspect. You have asymmetric decks, you have tons of abilities, you have, I think is it 18 cards per player? I have to double check the number. I think it's 18 cards per player. There's a 5, 2 4s, 2 3s, 2 2s, and a 0. That's, am I doing that right? 2 2s, 2 3s, 2 4s, that's 6, 7, 8, 16 cards per player. There's 16 cards per player in the game, and the problem is 8 of those cards are for each side. So you have 8 cards that favor you when you're playing black, and 8 cards when you favor you when you're playing white, and the decks are asymmetric. But that means you have to not just know your opponent's cards and your cards and have that sense of gameplay, because you will be a better player if I know that you can resign and do that. If I know that you can completely skip the aspect where we give the award for winning the challenge. If I know the cards coming my way, if I can anticipate around those things, that gives you a leg up. But you not just have to know that about your deck, about your opponent's deck, you have to know that about your deck for which color they're playing as, your opponent's deck for which color they're playing as, which means there is a good degree of memory, but not just memory around the general concept, memory even to which phase you're in. And that is it's a big informational overload, which is going to favor somebody who has played this game a lot and or just has a better memory. You're going to have a person favored when that situation occurs, which is something that I don't love in these two-player kinds of games, because I want when I'm playing my third game and you're playing your 8th game, I want to be on somewhat level playing fields. And I think this game will reward the player who plays it enough to know all the cards and which phase they are in as you go through it. As far as what I can see, I was not liking, first of all, in general, just the fact that you have to know cards. This is a game that I think works well in your first play if you like this style of game, but it will certainly have an informational gap as you go through it. For me, my comfort level is just having to know my cards and your cards to a degree. There's not that many. There's 16. It's not the end of the world. There is some overlap on the decks, but having to know the phases to me is where I draw the line, but you might not like that at all. I'll say that the game can absolutely have the feel of whoever draws better wins the match. That game could, that feeling could be there. I don't think that's the case in this. I think there's so much strategy and so much mitigation, and it has that poker aspect of, yes, you know, you have a hand of cards, but whether you choose to push this round or not, when you choose to try to lean into your win or pull back from it, those are things we have control over. So I don't think it comes down to the card draw, but I can absolutely see players being like, okay, great, you got the right cards in the right round, congratulations, you win, yay, you know. I can see you getting that feel for it if you don't play this enough and or see the nuances and subtleties of the abilities, the cards, when and how to push, and all of that. As far as final thoughts on Match of the Century, I was very optimistic about this game going in. I saw a lot of people comparing it to Watergate, which is one of my favorite tug-of-war games, designed by Matthias Kramer, a different game entirely, from Capstone Games as well, or at least Capstone Games I think took over the publishing at one point, but I saw it compared to Watergate, and that started me off leaning towards it. And the idea of a simulated, you know, chess but not chess, I thought that concept was cool. I like chess as a game. The idea of playing this out, it's a fun little thing. I mean, recently they have that, is it Battle for Versailles or something like that? The something Versailles, where from Salt and Pepper Games, it also has a push and pull game, but as a fashion show. And so the idea of having these tug-of-war mechanics being applied to different engines, I like it when it's applied to a smaller, more accessible game length. I don't like the 2-hour-long games. 1960, The Making of the Presidents, Twilight Struggle. Those are games that have those concepts, but they are much broader in what they do, and they're not as much for me. I like the smaller box effect. I like it when you're talking about a 30 to 45 minute length and you give me that feeling of a game. And so I walked into this one expecting to like it. And it delivered. It delivered on what I expected. It gave me an excellent game, a game that I really enjoy, that I love the nuances and subtlety of the decks. To me, this is like head-to-head with Watergate as far as where I enjoy it. I think it's a fantastic tug-of-war, fantastic push and pull. My biggest complaint that holds it back a bit is that I think that the game length just runs a bit too long. I'm pretty sure Watergate for me is a shorter game, which is, I'm pretty sure, it's been a while since I played Watergate, but I'm pretty sure Watergate for me is a shorter game, which is surprising to me, but I really do like Match of the Century, and I think it gives you a lot in a small box. So for me, this is a 4 4.5 out of 5. I think it's an excellent experience. As far as other game recommendations, I'd be remiss not to recommend Watergate. If you like Watergate, I think this gives you the same vibes, and vice versa. If you like one, I highly recommend checking out the other. And then similarly, another game that actually had a similar mechanic recently I just played is Time Division. Time Division from Heidelberg Games had a very similar concept where as you play a card, you either get the strength or you get the ability, and so that gives you a similar kind of trade-off as you go through it. Very different engine past that, but both of them are two-player games with a degree of, card play and management. Personally, I prefer Match of the Century, but if you like that mechanic, you can find more of that in Time Division. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.